What's up, nerds? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is John Scott Won't Stop. I'm a second generation hairstylist that's been doing hair for the better part of 2 decades. And I'm here to share the knowledge that I've gained throughout my years in the industry with you, whether that be a product review or the stylist perspective on how to do a certain technique with styling, or the self perspective of how to do that same technique. And as always, be sure to subscribe and ring that bell to set your notifications so you don't miss any videos. Earlier this week, over on TikTok, I put up a poll asking everyone what they wanted to learn from me next. So I gave you the options of hot tools or blow dries. And it was pretty neck and neck, but the majority chose hot tools. So this week, we're going to be going over curling irons, wands, waivers, and flat iron curls. However, we're only going to be doing the basics. We're going to save more advanced techniques for later videos. That way, I can give you guys more content, and having filmed just the basics took so long. That's why this video has taken so long to get to you, that just to save time and not to bore you guys with a 2-hour, 3-hour masterclass on ironwork, I thought I would just demonstrate what the different irons do and their different finishes at a basic level. And then next week, I will be showing you guys how to do a basic paddle brush blow dry. And then in later videos, we'll get more into round brush blow dries and really shaping the hair. But next week, we're just going to focus on getting the hair smooth. Now, when it comes to straightening the hair, that is going to be its own video. I only flatter my hair right before I do a haircut. So I'm saving that for when I need to cut my hair, which should be in a couple weeks. And it should line up kind of just with the direction all of this is going. As always, if there is a product or a tool you would like for me to review, please leave a comment down below and I will look into that as soon as possible. So let's just jump right into the irons this week. In today's video, I use Kenra blow dry spray to prep the hair for the blow dries. I use the Kenra color protection thermal spray to prep the hair for the ironwork. And then I use the silkening gloss by Kenra Platinum to finish off the hair and break up the curls. A little bit later, you'll see me grab a sea salt spray. That sea salt spray is by Sexy Hair Care, and that is the Beechin spray. Before we start any ironwork, it's important that we blow dry the hair and get it as smooth as possible. A smooth foundation is going to guarantee a better finish with the irons. To do this, we're going to prep the hair with Kenra blow dry spray, and then we're going to start a rough dry on the hair. A rough dry is going through the hair without a brush, just your fingers, taking your concentrator off your blow dryer and blowing in the direction that the hair grows, just getting the excess moisture out of the hair to make the smoothing part of the blow dry go by much faster. After we have finished the rough dry, we're going to pre-section the hair. Pre-sectioning the hair before doing any work is going to save you a lot of time. Rather than having to let the hair down, resection, put it back up, pin it, all you have to do is pull a clip out, let the hair drop, and continue moving. This is a pro tip for those young stylists out there to speed up their finishing or their blow dry times at the end of their service. We're going to go through section by section, always starting in the nape, which is the very back bottom portion of your hair, towards the middle, and then working our way out. We're going to do the same method with all of the irons. Working from the bottom up is going to be your best bet. Also, it gets like the more awkward parts out of the way if you're working on yourself or you're doing your own hair. So that way you're not like reaching around a curl or you're reaching around a wave looking for the straight hair. You're literally just grabbing the hair in front, taking the straight piece in the back of the rest, curling that, pick the next piece, so on and so forth. So once we have the hair smooth, then we'll move on to the ironwork. Up first, curling irons. Now, myself personally, as a stylist, I prefer a curling iron over all other hot tools when working on my guests to prep them for photos, to show off any of my work. So we're going to start with curling iron today. Me personally, I prefer to use a curling iron to finish my clients, especially before taking a picture of the color work that I've done. I always show my clients their color with their hair straight so they can see that I'm not hiding any errors with the curling iron. But little life hack here, if you happen to have gone to a salon and you didn't get the best experience or the best service that you were looking for, and you're feeling a little self-conscious about your hair, curl your hair. It's going to disguise a lot of the things that you may not like about it until you can get into another salon to get your hair fixed. All right, so we're going to jump into the curling iron. So with every layer of heat you use in the hair, it's important to use another thermal protection. So we already prepped the hair with the blow dry using the blow dry spray. But now before we iron the hair, we're going to go through with the color protection thermal spray, thoroughly spray it throughout, not wet, from a distance. Make sure it's layer by layer, and then we're going to pre-section the hair before we start curling the hair. As we approach the curl, we are going to start in the nape, center, and we're going to work our way forward, always curling away from the face. And throughout the back sections, we're going to alternate which direction we're going to curl that first piece, just to create different movement. So throughout that center piece, up the back through the sections, we're just going to alternate which way it goes. It's just going to add a little bit more movement to the hair. So I'm using a spring clip iron today. I'm not using a Marcel. A Marcel is more of a hand movement technique, which I was in my age of stylists, we're all trained in. I just prefer the spring clip. It's just a little bit easier. Others prefer the Marcel, and to each their own. The spring clip does have a stabilizer. It's just a little piece that you can touch that's not hot like the rest of the iron to make sure you're holding the iron steady. It's just a little bit less work, or it's just a little bit easier to use than a Marcel iron. But those that use Marcel irons, mad respect to you guys. I use them here and there. I just prefer using a spring back. As we approach the hair, we're going to take the very center piece in the nape. As I said, we're going to feed the hair up to the root into the iron, and we're going to slowly slide away, holding the clip a little bit loose, and we're going to roll back to the scalp, not touching the scalp. And we're going to use our right, or our more dominant hand, to turn the iron, and then our other hand to kind of stabilize it. Then we're going to click it slightly to allow to feed the hair through, and we're going to roll it back up, leaving about an inch to a half inch out. The reason why I leave it an inch to a half inch out is because it's going to give it just a little bit more texture. We usually hold it for about 3 to 5 seconds. This will make sure that the hair is thoroughly heated all the way through. And then we're going to unwind and slide the last 1 to 1.5 inches of ends through the iron, creating a texture at the bottom. Again, we're going to be in the center and work our way forward, curling away from the face. And we're going to work our way through all of the sections. When we have finished all the sections, we're going to allow the hair to cool before we touch it. You don't want to manipulate the hair until all the curls have cooled down. Heat will change the shape, cool will set the shape. So you want the shape to set first. And before we manipulate any of the curls by breaking them up, we're going to put serum into our hands using the Silkening Gloss by Kenra. You can use any serum at home. You're not putting enough serum in your hair, in your hands, to transfer it into the hair. What you're doing is you're creating an oil barrier on your hands, because our hands do not have sebaceous glands, so they do not produce oil. We only have sudoriferous glands, or sweat glands, and that's just going to disrupt the curl rather than breaking it up. So having a thin layer of serum on your hands is going to ensure that you're going to break up those curls, and they're going to maintain their shape, and they're not going to get frizzy or rough or anything of the sort. And here you can see the finished result. Moving on to the wand. Wands are a bit different from curling irons in the sense of the way you wrap the hair. Now, majority of the time while you're wrapping, it's going to create a twist on the hair, which will eventually break up in the end, and it's going to give you a slightly more textured finish than the curling iron. The curling iron is going to give you a more polished finish, while the wand's going to give you a little bit more textured finish. Most wands come with a heat-resistant glove. I personally don't like working with those. I will burn myself before I burn the guest. So you won't see me working with one. It's important to note that, okay, so this is the box to my wand, and I just have this because I wanted to show you the shape of the wand here. This little portion right here, the rest of it, it's like a little rest. So like when you set down your iron, it has the 2 legs that hold the tail end of the iron up while this part lays down. That's not exactly just for resting it down. You also want to rest this on someone's scalp or rest it on their head while you're wrapping the iron. It's just a good way to ensure that you don't burn them with this part of the iron up here. So of course, to start, we're going to blow dry the hair smooth. We're going to prep the blow dry with the blow dry spray, and then prep the hair with the color protection thermal spray by Kenra. We're going to start in the nape in the very center. We're going to take a small vertical section, the same way we did with the curling iron. We're going to place the rest, or the legs, we're just going to call them legs for the purpose of this video, the legs of the wand against the head, and we're going to wrap the hair around the iron. We're going to alternate in the very center piece on the back of all the sections, but we're going to be working away from the face on the sides as we go. So we're going to start in the bottom, back center, and work our way forward, then work our way forward the other side, just like the curling iron. And we're going to work our way all the way through. So while I complete the head, wands are a lot faster. A lot of younger stylists run to wands because they're a lot faster. For people at home, they tend to be a little bit more user-friendly because you're not clicking and moving. You're literally planting it, wrapping it, holding it, waiting, letting it down. Other side, wrapping it, holding it, waiting, letting it down. So it's a little bit more of a user-friendly tool. You do have to be careful though, because you can burn your fingers pretty bad. And you will always have a straight end. There's no way to pull the ends through so on a curling iron, I pull the ends through. That does straighten the ends a little bit, smooths them out, and it gives it a slight bend. With a wand, you can't do that. So if your blow dry is not super smooth, the ends can either look frayed or the texture just might not match the curl. So it's really, really important that if you're going to use a wand, you do make sure you do as smooth of a blowout as you possibly can, or use one of the heat protection gloves so that way you can get as much of the hair wrapped around the wand as possible. Now, there are different techniques for wrapping the hair around the wand. However, for the purpose of this video, we're only going to stick to the basics and we'll do more advanced work with each iron in future videos. When finished, we're going to allow the hair to fully cool down before we break it up. Again, we're going to be using the Silkening Gloss by Kenra to add a thin layer of serum to our hand so that way when we break up the curl, we do not disrupt the curl. As long as you have a good layer of serum on your hands, that's not going to allow your hands to disrupt the curl. You can break that wave up quite a bit. The more you break it up, the prettier I think it looks. Eventually, though, you're just going to start pulling the wave out. So just be cautious. Watch how far you're able to take it. You'll start to get the hang of it and the feel for it over time. Now, I had 3 options for using the Waver. I used my friend Savannah, who's going to make an appearance a little bit later in this video. She's actually coming up next with the flat iron curls. The Waver I used is hers. It has a little lip on the edge of it. I've never used it before, so it was like an interesting experience. You're not always going to be comfortable with the irons, any new iron when you first start using it. So get the hang of it first before you decide on whether you like its finish or not. My personal Waver is a 1/2 inch barrel Waver. Hers is a 3/4 inch barrel Waver, and I also have a W rounded Waver as well. For this video, I used her 3/4 inch Waver, and I'm going to, at the end, insert an image of what my hair looks like with my 1/2 inch barrel Waver and my 1 inch W rounded Waver. Okay, so by this point, this doll head had been washed, blow dried, ironed, washed, blow dried, ironed. So the hair is getting a little rough at this point. Plus, this is a doll head that has been used for junior stylists to practice different color techniques on, and the last thing that was done to it was a balayage, so it was already not in the best condition and probably could have used a haircut before we started all this. So please keep that in mind while we work. This doll head is not my own personal work. I don't really work on doll heads unless I'm demonstrating something, and then I hand it over to whoever I'm demonstrating it for and let them just take over from that point. So this doll head, her name was Deborah, had been through it a little bit, and so by the time we blew it out for the 3rd time, it wasn't as smooth as we could have gotten it, but also, again, it's a doll head. It's been through some heat. So keep that in mind as we work through the Waver process. Just like any other iron that we're going to do, we're going to smooth out the hair first, prep it with a blow dry spray using a layer of heat protection for every heat source that we use. We are using the blow dry spray by Kenra. I'm going to reiterate this every single time because I want it to get in your heads to always use a thermal protection whenever you're using heat. And then before we iron, we're going to use the Color Protection Thermal Spray by Kenra as well. So we're going to start in the nape, but this time we're going to take horizontal sections. You can take vertical sections, but like I said, for the purpose of this video, we're going to focus on the basics. So you're going to take a horizontal subsection, and you're going to start at the root. You're going to press the hair. It's very similar to a crimper. You're going to move down to the next section of straight hair. You're going to press again. You're going to move down. You're going to press again. You can actually feel it bounce through the iron. When you feel the bounce happen, that's when you would close the iron, and that's going to have it all line up properly. Again, do not mess with it until it's done. Looking straight down at the wave, it might not look like a wave, but if you catch it in a mirror or a reflection somewhere from the side, you will see it. So if you feel like you haven't really waved the hair properly, if you're doing yourself and you're looking at it like this, turn this way so you can see if the wave is there. If you're working on a client and it doesn't feel like it's waved, look at them from the front to see if the wave has taken. You're going to work your way all the way throughout the hair. Now, this one is actually pretty quickly on the guests that you're working on because you're working in wider sections and you probably have to go down the hair 2 or 3 times. My hair, when I personally do it by myself, because of how small the barrel is on my waver, can take anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours, depending on how much effort I'm willing to put into it. So we're going to work our way through the sections. Again, starting in the back center, we're working our way forward. We don't have to worry about curling away from the face because, again, we're taking horizontal sections the whole way up. And once we're finished, we're going to allow it to cool. Now, to be honest, I was a little disappointed in the way this wave turned out. But again, it's because the hair of the doll head had been through it. It went through so much heat. Probably 3 days before that, I had filmed all this footage originally here in my home, and I did not like the way it looked. So I scrapped it all and waited until I could have like a day at the salon that I could film all the footage there. So with that being said, this doll head had been through it. So I wasn't loving the way the wave was coming out, and it was my first time using this particular waver. But in the end, you get the idea of how it turns out. I'll also insert, like I said earlier, pictures of my hair when I use my own wavers. And I have healthy hair that doesn't face heat all the time. I actually use heat as little as possible on my hair. So you can also see the finish there as well. Once we are done, what we're going to do is allow the hair to cool down before we manipulate it. Now, I will be using a sea salt spray on this to give it more of a beachy wave finish. But before I do that, I want to break up the waves by using the Kenra Silkening Gloss Serum. So I have something on my hands as to not disrupt the wave. The hair's already been through enough. And then we're going to break up the wave, and then I'm going to go through and spray it with the sea salt spray and scrunch. Spray, scrunch, spray, scrunch, and then it's going to give that beachy wave finish. So it has more of a dry texture. It's not going to be such a polished curl. It could be better, but again, it's a doll head. It's been through it. There's not much you can do at this point. So here's the finished result. Last but not least, we have the flat iron curl. Now this, I really see a lot of younger stylists favoring this. I see a lot of clients favor this. I've actually had a disagreement with a previous salon owner that I worked with. They thought that I needed to be curling hair with a flat iron because that's how they do it. And they felt like using a curling iron wouldn't hold up in humidity the same way a flat iron would. However, joke's on them. Where I'm from is a lot more humid than where I'm at now. And we use curling irons down there, not flat irons. So it's really just a matter of preference. Now, you're going to get a little bit more texture out of a flat iron curl than you would, say, a wand or a curling iron. So curling iron is more polished. A flat iron curl is really textured, and then a wand sits right in between, and a waver is kind of like its own deal. So Savannah is going to be demonstrating this. I'm sorry, like we should have filmed from the right. Again, this is a learning process. There are sections where you will be able to see exactly what she's doing, but I'm also going to explain it as we go as well. Before we start the flat iron curl, we're going to prep the hair by smoothing it out with a blow dry. Using the Kenra blow dry spray, heat protect it before the blow dry. Once we have the hair smoothed out, we're going to prep the hair for the iron by using the Color Protection Thermal Spray by Kenra, and then we're going to pre-section it. Once again, we're going to be working from the nape up. I like to work from the center out. Savannah has a little bit of a different approach. In the very, very nape, she'll work from one side to the next, but as she works up, she starts center and works her way forward, curling the hair away from the face. Now, it's a little hard to see what she's doing right now. We're still learning how to film. It's a little bit different when you're teaching someone. They tend to walk around you and go opposite of you. As a senior stylist or an instructor, you kind of, they move around you. You don't move around them. But I promise you will see how this is working. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the hair at the root. We are going to clamp down the iron, slide it out a little ways. We're going to rotate the iron, kind of hold the hair as you do this. It makes it a little bit easier. Then we're going to re-grip and we're going to slide the hair through. You want to rotate the iron at least 180 degrees before you slide it through. And what that's going to do is create a bend for the hair to wrap around. And once you've pulled it all the way through, you're going to want to coil the hair back into a curl. Sometimes it'll lay straight, back into a curl before it sets. You leave it alone, you move on to the next section. One side is always going to be more awkward than the other. I think for me personally, I work better on the left side of somebody than on the right side. The right side's a little different. A lot of us stylists will like get a over grip and then we'll turn it so we can do less work. Uh, Personally, I don't like curling with a flat iron. I will if it is a super textured bob or A-line bob or glass cut bob. I think the best way to style those is with a flat iron. So I'll either use that or maybe like a 3/4 inch curling iron. But most of the time you're going to catch me using a flat iron to curl a bob just to get that like cute little bouncy texture. Savannah's going to continue all the way throughout the hair, getting it finished. Now, I was waiting till the very end to explain this. If you notice in the curling iron section, at the very, very top, okay, so I have a pro tip here. You really can't see Savannah doing it. You actually see me do it in the very beginning when I was working with the curling iron. When I get up into the top section near the part, to avoid having part lines throughout the hair, I take diagonal little subsections. So instead of taking like a vertical or a horizontal section, I take diagonal. What this causes is the hair to lay on top of itself rather than laying side by side. So when you brush it out, it covers up that little part from the subsection that you're working on. So again, once the hair has cooled all the way down, we're going to grab some serum and we're going to break up those curls. Savannah here is breaking up the curls nicely for us, but I'm going to come in at the end and take all the credit for it, kind of like a certain hairstylist tends to do with their own product line. It's interesting when we can only see their hands. You can see my tattoos in this, so you know it's me. You'll know it's me. But I'm going to come back through with Beach and Spray by Sexy Hair, and I'm just going to add a little bit more texture to this flat iron curl. All right, now let's talk temperature. It's very important that you discuss the temperature of your iron with your stylist. Different factors play into how we adjust the heat for working on our clients and for them working at home. Typically, a stylist can use a little bit higher of a heat than you will be using, and that's because we're above and behind you. We can work quicker. We can get through your hair with a little bit more ease and with less awkwardness than it would take you. So you're not sitting there trying to like readjust your grip while you're cooking your hair away at the temperature that, say, we would do it. Also, another factor that comes into play is the type of color you have done to your hair. So if you have a pop vivid color like a pink or an orange or a blue or a green, too high of heat can actually burn off that toner and cause it to fade really bad. It will also do the same to your toners for your blondes. And if you're all over blonde, the integrity of your hair has already been challenged, as well as you could burn the toner off your hair with higher heats. Now, that's not going to burn your hair, but your hair can withstand a lot more heat than, say, a pop color, vivid color, or a toner. And if your hair has been challenged by a lightening process, then you're not going to want to use, nor will you need a lot of heat to create a curl in your hair. So usually, typically with my clients that have blonde highlighted hair or all over blonde hair or a vivid color, I usually like to keep the temperature around 320 degrees Fahrenheit. For those that have just hair color, I would like them to stay around 350 to 370. If it's virgin, I usually typically don't tell people to use over 385 unless you have very coarse resistant hair, at which point I would say don't go over 410. Now, typically, I wouldn't suggest ever going over 410. There are some people that can use higher heats because their hair is a little bit more resistant to the smoothing process and do require more heat. But typically, in my experience, anyone that requires heat higher than 410, they are aware of what it takes to take care of their hair. And they are someone that is knowledgeable in, or not knowledgeable, but they're practiced with their own heat tools, or they go get their hair done professionally weekly by a stylist. It is important that you don't take a heat source to your hair more than twice a week. You are really challenging the integrity of the hair and you could be causing a lot of damage that you cannot fix. There is not a K18 treatment or an Olaplex treatment that can fix burnt, fried hair. It's important that you take care of your hair using heat protectants with every layer of heat that you do. Use the correct heat setting, temperature setting for your hair type and the services you've had done to your hair, and you don't use heat on your hair very often. All right, guys, thank you for joining me this week. I appreciate your patience as I get the hang of all of this. I do plan to do much more for you guys. Next week, I'll be going over blow dries. Again, I'm going to demonstrate it from the stylist perspective, how we work. That will be more informative for junior stylists and other stylists out there that just don't find hairstyling their strong suit. And then I'm also going to give it the personal perspective, like what it's like to do your own blowouts at home. With the blowouts at home, the self perspective, I will be doing a paddle brush blowout just to show you guys the techniques for smoothing the hair. If you can get the hair pretty smooth with a paddle brush, then when you use a little bit more of the advanced techniques that are required with a round brush, you will fly through it and it will be much easier. So I always want to start from the bottom and work your way up in difficulty of these services. If there's anything you guys want me to show you, let me know. If there's any questions you have, sound off in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, set your notifications so you don't miss any videos. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you guys for joining me this week, and I'll see you next week.